Morning came and Vinny was cooking bacon for Cynthia, Gus, and himself to eat. Cynthia had slept the night in the guest room, crying herself to sleep after discovering that her father was a Nazi and her uncle was an anarchist. Gus and Cynthia were transported to school after breakfast, but they remained separated from each other, as usual. The failure of the White family's feast got around to Aliyah, who confronted Cynthia about it at the beginning of their lunch period. "I heard your little feast went less than great," Aliyah said sarcastically. "You heard about that?" Cynthia groaned. "I also heard you don't have a date for prom, which sounds about right for an ugly pig like yourself," Aliyah snickered. "And you do?" Cynthia asked. "I've rejected." Aliyah started to count off on her fingers. 14 guys and 1 girl, so no. Cynthia scoffed. "You think you're so great, but one day you're going to have a terribly rude awakening. Are you going to ask somebody? It'd be pretty embarrassing if you went without a date," Aliyah said. "Maybe. Gus." Cynthia considered. "That's funny. I'm already going to ask him." Aliyah laughed. "No chance. He hates you. He's told me himself," Cynthia argued. "Plus, you're dating Johnny Wilson. I broke up with him temporarily," Aliyah stated blankly as she walked away. Cynthia was left confused. Why would she ask Gus out? Sure. Gus was no longer the bullied loner he once was, but he was nowhere near as popular and attractive as some of the guys at Freedom Miller High. If Aliyah asked Gus out, Cynthia knew that things would surely turn out very poorly for her in some way. She never really considered Gus as a love interest, but it seemed like the best option for her. Cynthia found Gus during lunch, and he was sitting alone as usual. She sat down and began talking to Gus. "I know I've said this a lot, but thank you so much for letting me stay with you and your brother. I just know they would have put me in an abusive foster family or something horrible like that," Cynthia said, trying to charm Gus. Before Gus could reply, the two noticed Aliyah swiftly approaching. She opened her mouth to speak to Gus, but Cynthia spoke first. "Gus, do you want to go to prom with me?" Cynthia asked. "Why yes," Gus replied confusedly. "What?" Aliyah shouted. Aliyah was stunned for a short second before furiously stomping away. She went to the bathroom, where she thought of a plan B, while Gus and Cynthia discussed the upcoming Saturday. "You know, I'm really happy you asked me out," Gus said. "I was planning on asking you tomorrow, but, yeah. There is a problem, though." "What's that?" Cynthia asked. "Everything always goes wrong," Gus complained. "What?" "Yeah. Trouble just seems to follow me everywhere. It's like I'm cursed. Ever since I was accused of cheating in Mr. Donaldson's class, I've been stuck in a constant cycle of misery. The April 4th attacks, my parents, kidnappings, and so much more. There were 2 other times." Cynthia asked. "Yeah. I can't go anywhere, or have any fun at all without suffering. Like your feast. None of that would have happened if I wasn't there." "What? None of that was your fault. I'm cursed." Cynthia. "Come on Gus, you've just had a streak of bad luck. That ends Saturday night. Let's just have some fun and forget about everything. How could this go wrong?" Meanwhile, Aliyah was enacting Plan B. She was going to ask out Braden Clark, one of Mayor Thomas Clark's nephews. Gus and her were going to be the most famous couple in the school. And through their popular relationship, They could have spread the Novus Ordo Seclorum throughout the school, but she'd have to settle for Braden. She already rejected many of the other popular boys, so now Braden had become the best option. He was related to the former mayor, after all. Hey, Braden, are you going to prom this weekend with me? Aaliyah asked Braden right in front of his friends. My uncle told me not to associate myself with the DuPonts, Braden said. How else are you going to get a date for prom? It's the biggest event of the school year. I'm sure your popularity would take a pretty big hit, Braden. So would yours. Besides, I didn't want all of this popularity, Braden explained. How would it reflect on the legacy of your uncle? Aaliyah argued, grasping at straws. Fine. Just Saturday, then I never want to talk to you again, Braden conceded. See you then, Aaliyah said, walking away. On Friday night, Aaliyah was helping the school make preparations for prom the following night. She climbed up a ladder to throw streams of colorful paper on the ceiling of the gymnasium. But as she did this, she used a hacksaw to make cracks in one of the support beams and covered it in paper. Right below the cracked beam was a photo booth for couples to take a picture. There's no way they'd ever see it coming, she thought to herself. Saturday night came and Gus and Cynthia were driven by Vinny to prom, while Aaliyah drove herself and Braden. 3 freshmen from Freedom Miller's rival school Benco Falls High School, the school that Ralph attended, began the walk to Freedom Miller's prom, rather than going to their own. Gus told Harry about his success with Cynthia, and was allowed to access his stocks again. Gus took some money out of his investments and bought himself a blue tuxedo and gave Cynthia money to buy a dress. They both came out of separate bathrooms out of getting ready, and upon seeing each other, they both were shocked by how stunning they both looked together. Cynthia realized that Gus was actually handsome when he tried to be, and Gus realized that Cynthia was one of the most gorgeous girls in the school. They arrived at the school early, so they decided to converse with some of the other students. They chatted with Chad Timberton and his girlfriend, Melissa Cooper. I really hope this dance goes better than the last one, Chad said with an optimistic tone. Right before she died, Shannon Porter told me that she thought Aaliyah caused the downfall of her popularity, Melissa explained. I think it's all a conspiracy, and the fact that the school didn't pay her any tribute after she died is insane to me. Gus, despite knowing the truth, said nothing. I'm certainly not going to be the reason something bad happens tonight. I hope the 4 of us all stay out of whatever crazy thing Aaliyah might have planned, Cynthia said. Amen, Chad agreed. The 4 noticed Aaliyah and Braden enter the gymnasium. Aaliyah kept trying to hold hands with Braden, but he kept pulling away. Aaliyah angrily whispered something in his ear right before giving a huge smile to everybody. Over the past 2 days, Braden had been dealing with the possibility that his beloved uncle's death may have been planned, due to the police finding more information on him. Braden was worried that if his uncle's death was planned, maybe someone would try to kill him, too. Eventually, the gymnasium was filled with people and the prom had officially started. The DJ, Henrik Small, was playing Red Cold River by Breaking Benjamin, but was booed by the students and had to change the music. Aaliyah approached Cynthia and Gus with an offering. I'm hearing from some of the people here that you two may be contenders for prom king and queen. So how would you like to be the first to have access to the photo booth? The pictures will go in the yearbook, Alia offered. I don't think. Gus began. Sure. Cynthia agreed. The two were led over to the photo booth near the DJ stand. Cynthia, let's get a picture with just you first, then Gus, then we'll have both of you in the same picture. Cynthia confidently walked into the photo booth, and Gus watched as Alia signaled to someone sitting on one of the beams on the ceiling. Alia had a man from the Novus Ordo Seclorum on the ceiling position, ready to drop the support beam she had placed cracks in, or so she thought. The man on the ceiling was not one man, but three men, who weren't in the Novus Ordo Seclorum at all. At Alia's signal, the three unknown figures dropped buckets of dark green paint on Gus, along with feathers. In no time, Gus was covered in green paint and feathers. He stared up at the three people on the ceiling, and recognized the unmistakable faces of Trent, Josh, and Michael. The frogs had gotten their revenge, at last. Alia wondered what happened to the Novus Ordo Seclorum member. Just half an hour before, the NOS member climbed to the roof of the school, but the frogs came shortly after. The NOS member, thinking he had been caught, fought the three, but he was no match for the frogs. The frogs pushed the man off the building, killing him. After Gus was covered in green paint and feathers, and now everyone was laughing at Gus, the frogs made a quick escape through the ventilation, and Gus was left speechless. When Cynthia came out of the photo booth, she was very confused as to what had happened. Other than Chad, Melissa, and Cynthia, Alia was the only other one not laughing. She had tried to kill Cynthia, and she failed. Gus had to go home, but he came back after showering and a change of clothes. The prom ended with Gus and Cynthia getting second place, judged by Henrik Small, a junior, and Sarah Halfthorne, a senior. Chad and Melissa won, and Alia and Braden got fourth, behind two juniors.